Back in 2013, I proudly bought an Xbox One on launch day, and since then, for pretty much a whole decade, I've been 100% complete and utter Xbox. So for anybody else thinking about switching from Xbox to the new PS5, well, today is when we find out. Hi, my name is Pete, and on this channel we help busy entrepreneurs find the best tech, be productive, and stay safe online. First up, let's talk about the size of the console, because the PS5 is pretty significantly bigger than the Xbox Series X, both of which decided they would break tradition this time of making their usual shaped console, and instead have this kind of bigger, bulkier, less likely to fit in your TV cabinet shape. Now, let's get onto the console itself and talk about the UI, and it looks really smart. Personally, after having an Xbox One and now a Series X, nothing's really changed for a very, very long time. It still looks the same, doesn't look really attractive at all, and it still looks fairly similar to that weird blocky UI that Microsoft came up with for their mobile phone operating system. Oh, and it's also really, really busy. Like, there is far too much going on. I think most Xbox players just use the home screen, Game Pass, and the quick access to settings and friends. So coming over to the PlayStation dashboard, it's really, really nice to see a change. It's laid out really well, the animations are smooth, and it's just really nice and responsive. Similar to Xbox, a tap of the PlayStation button gives you quick access to game switching, settings, friends, audio, and just all of the things that you need in a pinch, which takes me on to graphics. And this is, of course, reliant on the game developers to come out with games that show off the hardware. But I have to say, there have been times where I've been around friends' places and seen their PS4 or PS5, and the graphics just look better and smoother. Now, I know that could be down to like the TV they're using just as much as the PlayStation, but it still felt like that regardless of like whose house I was over. The Series X is technically the more powerful in terms of physical hardware, but the PS5 just feels like it's more consistent. There's no momentary slowdowns when browsing menus, no drops in frame rate that I've seen so far in any games, way less glitchy in already horrendously buggy games like Call of Duty, but in terms of real graphics quality, they're just too close to cool. On the PS5, you have games like Spider-Man and Ratchet & Clank, which have incredible graphics, through to Xbox's latest trailers for like Microsoft Flight Simulator. They are both pretty incredible consoles, and like I said before, it's down to the game developers themselves to make use of the hardware. Take a look at the recently announced Forza Horizon 5, for example, and you could easily assume that this was on the previous generation of consoles. But otherwise, both consoles can do 4K 120Hz on some games, though at the time of making this video, there is support for many more titles on the Xbox over the PS5. Jumping onto the controller now, and the PS5 has the new version of their trademark controller, but this time with a touch bar on the top, which can be used for kind of clicking and swiping. But I will say that whilst the PlayStation has by far the most innovative controller between the two, I just don't find it very comfortable. Now, by innovation, I mean the vibration motors in their PS5 are really, really great. I can't overstate that enough. With games like the included Astro's Playroom and some minor use on the likes of like Spider-Man and Ratchet & Clank, I found many other games didn't really make a huge use of them, but then it still is early days, so I'll be interested to see just what comes of them. The speakers can also be used for voice chat, which I found just pretty quiet unless you held the controller right up against your ear, but it is convenient considering there's also a mic included in the controller, so you don't need to worry about a headset for voice chatting, though you'll still want to invest in a headset if you're just a hardcore gamer. That speaker can also be used to extend that kind of 4D use case again, where things like blowing into the mic can say like spin a fan inside a game. And again, I've only come across this in Astro's Playroom, but it is an interesting concept all the same. And then you have the triggers, and the controllers have adaptive triggers which just vary the amount of pressure needed to apply them. And again, this just adds that Sony have thought how well about the next level when it comes to the controllers. So with all of that, with all of the new features and design, why is it still so uncomfortable to use when comparing to the Xbox controller? Microsoft design with the left D-pad and joystick positions just feels so much more natural. And yes, I guess because I'm playing with that controller for like the last 8 years, but also the sharp edges around the triggers and just a general grip feels uncomfortable. And then finally, the little joysticks themselves, I found my fingers slipping off more on the PlayStation than Xbox, where Microsoft's have like a much deeper curve to them. It's definitely an innie on the Xbox versus a kind of innie outie on the PlayStation. And then lastly, on the controller, there's currently no Pro controller options, whereas with Xbox, you have the very expensive, yes, but still very, very good Elite controller, which gives you a few features like adjustable triggers with these little switches here, but also gives you access to the 4 buttons on the back of the controller, which you can use to jump and ping and reload without taking your fingers off of the sticks. And I find myself just dying far more on PlayStation than I ever do on Xbox. What I'm realizing here is that it would be incredible if these two controllers could just become one and benefit from each other's design features, but very unlikely that's going to happen because, well, Sony and Xbox. But for now, I will say the stock PS5 controller is technically more advanced with some really interesting features, but the Xbox is just more comfortable. Let's talk console features now. And whilst the Series X does have quick resume, which lets you jump from game to game and pick up where you left off without kind of loading in fresh, it is sorely missing from the PS5 set of features. With that said though, the PlayStation is seamless in loading games whilst playing them. With the likes of Spider-Man, I mean, which is really clever, it transitions from playing a video cutscene right through to you taking over control and playing the game without any pause to render the environment, which I just found really stunning. I just wish they had the quick resume so that once I finished a round of zombies with the squad, I can jump back to something else without any kind of delays and waiting to start from scratch again. And that takes us on to game selection, and this is of course a very personal opinion. For the PlayStation, Spider-Man Miles Morales being a launch title was very well planned. It is an incredible game, but other titles like Gran Turismo 7 still yet to launch. Whereas on the Xbox you have standard titles like Halo, Flight Simulator and Forza Horizon, but this time around with the next gen consoles it's a slightly different and kind of easier decision, because right now many popular online titles are cross-platform, meaning you can still play with your friends regardless of whether they're on PlayStation or Xbox or even PC. Though it hasn't been smooth sailing all the time, commonly running into issues with joining the same party, and particularly cross-platform voice chat can be very hit and miss, but this is something that's only going to improve over time. One thing that is a fairly big deal to us, well, Xbox players, is what Microsoft call Xbox Game Pass Ultimate, and it's normally £10 or so per month. But if you do some strong Googling, you'll find that there's a workaround that lets you get 3 years worth of Game Pass for just $1. And I'll link that in the description down below for that beautiful information. But over in PlayStation land, this is kind of halfway between the PS Play subscription, which is just like your Xbox Live subscription, and PS Now, which is Sony's attempt at a game subscription / kind of download service. Both console, this also works on PC, but I will say that the Xbox takes the win with a better selection of games, included particularly with EA Play recently being added to the Game Pass Ultimate subscription. Not just popular games like FIFA and NHL and Madden, but also other games like Star Wars, Battlefield, Titanfall, Need for Speed. The Game Pass Ultimate really is a subscription that you could own and never have to buy another game again, particularly with the latest announcements that the latest gen games like Forza Horizon 5, Halo Infinite and Flight Sim are all available on launch day through Game Pass Ultimate and at no extra cost. In comparison, Sony seems to be slightly lagging behind and kind of doing what Microsoft was actually doing a few years ago. With PS Plus, you get a small number of games every single month, and this month's is Star Wars Squadrons, Virtua Fighter 2 and Operation Tango. Over to PS Now, you have titles like The Witcher 3, Borderlands 3, Doom, Metal Gear Solid, Last of Us, Uncharted. But for me, none of these really screamed value for the price. Again, very much a personal opinion, but I was expecting to at least see some classic PlayStation names like Tekken and Ridge Racer in the library, but just no. So whilst it will be a really personal opinion, depending on the games of course you want to play, I just can't see how you can beat the Game Pass Ultimate value right now, with high quality titles like Halo and Forza coming straight to you at no additional cost, and with that handy trick where Microsoft must definitely be aware of that, and meaning you can get 3 years worth of Game Pass Ultimate for just $1, it is a no-brainer. Overall, even with the controller not being comfortable and the game selection being a bit questionable at times, I'm still going to keep the PS5. The seamless loading of games, the high quality graphics and just overall classier UI is just great and makes a nice change to the Xbox, and I'm liking the game selection too. Next, go and watch this video on the best accessories to buy for your PS5, which I'll be uploading shortly. Subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and I'll see you soon. Thanks.